Great question, Julia, about female participation. In the last race we had an all-female crew. I'm not sure that's going to be the case in the next race, we don't know yet. But certainly for me, with the beginning of my career very much centred around Ellen MacArthur, one of the best female campaigns over the last couple of decades, you can rest assured that making sure there's a greater level of female participation in both the sport and the Volvo Ocean Race, this edition and beyond, is very high up my list. Chance, your questions, what's going to be different in the next race? I think there's already a lot of different small things that are different planned. The route will be different for sure. There's going to be a lot of upgrades to the boats, which will be interesting. We're looking at a lot of different other changes. I think the aim of any change we're going to make for the next race is simply to add increased excitement, increased options for the sailors in terms of routes they take, and try and take the level of suspense up one more level. Willem, you're asking, what's one change I would like to make straight away? Well, one thing I definitely want to make happen is that we have the ability to get more people sailing in the host cities at each of the stopovers, one way or another. Because getting people sailing from a sponsorship perspective is, I believe, the most valuable asset we have as a sport. Rich, great question about what can we do to help support and develop youth sailing. I'd love to find some initiatives where we can add some additional events at each of the stopovers to allow more youth participation in the sport and get close to Volvo Ocean Race. We're certainly going to take a look at that. Kevin, you're asking the $60 million question. What's the next boat if there's a boat change after the 2017-18 race? We're going to have to come back to you on that one, but everything's on the table. Hi, Sean. Without question, the costs of the campaign is a big factor for the success of the Volvo Ocean Race. The costs already came down in a big way. The boatyard costs already for the next race are coming down. I think there's a limit to how far down the cost can go. We're probably not that far from it. What we need to do now in the future cycles or future formats is try and spread the cost over perhaps more years, or just simply increase the return and make the value of it greater. Pinto, hope you got your name right. Are we going to impose a country rule? It's a good question. It's one that comes up a lot in professional sport and around the world all the time. The reality is today the funding of this sport is coming from brands. It's very unlikely we could convert that for it to come from countries purely. And when we start having global brands involved as the key stakeholders, ultimately most of them are international brands, and they don't always want to be completely flagged from one nation or all the sailors from one nation. In fact, quite the reverse. They want to engage their customers and employees around the world. So could we take the race into a pure country versus country formula like the Olympics? I think it's pretty hard to do that in many professional sports today, certainly in professional sailing, even though I completely agree, the nation versus nation aspect is a great media driver, and it would be a great way to do it. We still do have that because we have sponsors from particular countries, skippers from particular countries, but to go to a very pure nationality rule I think would be very, very difficult for the professional sailing today. Great question, Sarah. What would be my biggest challenge? I think the biggest challenge is the next 6 months, which is making sure we have all the teams lined up. It's looking very, very positive right now. Maybe we don't even have enough boats for the sponsors that are interested to be there, but it's always a challenge to get those deals done and know that you're sitting there with a full house. And in this case, we want to be building at least a boat as well. So that's undoubtedly the challenge of the next 6 months. And I'll tell you what the next challenge is in 6 months' time. At Sarah, we hope at the end of June, or not too long after that, we'll be able to reveal the full route for the race. And then for sure there's some nice evolutions in that compared with the last race. And you've asked when's the deadline for teams. Well, ultimately the deadline for teams is some point in 2017, but I don't think we're going to be in that place. I think we're going to be sold out a long time before that, during 2016.